Hey folks, it's Scott at the X-Fed Homestead. Well, it's getting to be that time of year and I'm getting pretty excited because it is time to start tapping sugar maple trees. And you may ask why I do this, and it's so that we can make some delicious, organic, 100% pure New England maple syrup. Tapping sugar maple trees is a time-honored tradition here in New England. And we've been doing it here in town for over a dozen years now with some friends of mine. So what I want to do is show you today how you actually tap a sugar maple tree. So let's do that right now. Now I know that there are people out there who don't know where maple syrup comes from. It actually comes from a tree. And you take that tree, you tap a hole in it, and you drain out some of the sap that's in that tree. And you boil down the sap, and it concentrates the sugars that were in the sap so that you get sweet maple syrup. It takes about 40 gallons of maple sap to make 1 gallon of maple syrup. And in order to tap the tree, you need certain supplies. Let me show you. In order to obtain maple sap from a maple sugar tree, you need to tap a hole into the tree. So you take a drill, about 5/8, and put it this little thing. So this end with the hole in the bottom goes into the hole that you drill into the tree. And then the tree holds it there by pressure, and the sap goes into that little hole and drips out this end into a bucket that you hang from this little hook on the... Now you can't just use any old bucket. What I like to use is a bucket that's specifically designed for maple syrup. So when this is in the tree, this little hole here goes on the hook and this hangs from the tree. And you see that traditional picture all over New England whenever you're running around in February and early March, and you see trees being tapped all over the place. It really is a beautiful sight to see maple syrup buckets hanging from trees all around town here. Once you have your bucket on the tree, you can take your cover and cover it up so no nasty stuff gets in there. And then you collect the sap every day and boil it off, which we'll show you in another video. But let me show you how we tap a tree. Now here's my favorite tree in my front yard. I've been tapping this sugar maple for over 10 years now. And you can see already that just today there's some drips coming off it. You can see this darkness on the surface, and it's ready to be tapped. So I don't really put a lot of taps on this side of the tree. So I'm going to do one this year because I can see the syrup's coming up this side of the tree. You should typically wait until the tree is about 12 to 14 inches in diameter before you tap it. And you can put 2 taps in trees that are around 20 inches in diameter. And for the really huge maple trees, you can put 3 or 4. My buddy Peter says, yeah, small tree you can put 1. And if I can get my arms around it, I'll put 2. But if I can't get my arms around it at all, I'll put 3. That's his typical unit of measurement. So let me show you how I drill into the tree and install the tap. Now typically you would use an electric drill in order to put the right size hole into the tree. But I don't do that. I like to be a little different. And I'm going to use this old-fashioned contraption. This is called a breast drill. It was given to me by my wife's grandfather, who I used to do a lot of work with, doing construction type stuff and home repairs. And so he wanted me to have this because he didn't have another use for it. And I took a brace bit and put it in here. And the breast drill goes breast high, and you just lean into it with your weight as you crank down on it. Now, one of the keys to making a good hole is to make it at a little bit of an upward angle so that the sap will drip down out of the tree. In addition, you want to make the hole about 4.5 feet off the ground, 5 feet off the ground. You can go higher as well, that doesn't really matter, but you don't want to go around the same holes that you've been doing year after year. A lot of people will make holes in a different pattern, and you'll see on the other side of the tree, I have a diagonal pattern that I've been using over the years. So here we go. You want to get that hole 1.5 to 2.5 inches into the tree. Now, you absolutely do not have to use an old-fashioned contraption like this. I just use it here in the neighborhood, and it honors my wife's grandfather, who I think of fondly from days gone by. It's the only time of the year that I actually use the drill. There we go. I'll just use my knife to clean it out. And you can already see the drippings coming out of that hole. Now I should show you here that these splines that we use to tap the tree, they go around this little hook here that gets forced into the tree, and then it has a hole in the side here that you can use to secure the top of the bucket. So that's how it should look when it's all said and done. So let me put that into the tree here and see how it works. I'll take my hammer and just give it a little tap. And you can see that secures the hook in place. So now I can put the bucket right there. You're finally in a video. And on top of the bucket, I can secure the top, and it looks just like every other bucket in New England at this time of year. You can hear it dripping down there like a drum. That's a nice sound. So I'm going to do some more here in the neighborhood, a few more taps before it gets too late. And in the morning, what will happen is all the sap that's stored in the roots of the tree during the cold evenings will start to work its way back up from the roots up through the sugar maple tree during the daytime when it warms up. The sap runs best when you have freezing cold evenings and then warmer days. And that's what we have in February and early March. So hoping for a good season, and we'll see how much maple syrup we can make this year. Hey, now it's the next day. It's about noontime, and our bucket has had a chance to fill up a little bit. So if I take a look inside, I'll be real happy to find about half a bucket full of syrup. It's still dripping, and there's about a gallon in there just from last night. So now I need to take this sap and bring it to the sugar shack that we built last weekend, where it can be boiled off and turned into maple syrup. In order to do that, I need to transport it over there, and so I have another bucket here on the ground, a collection bucket, and I just have to pour this sap into the bucket to collect it. Now I'll put this back, and we're ready to collect some more tomorrow. Now, just because I'm using a metal bucket here doesn't mean you have to do that. There are a million different ways to collect syrup. You can use plastic taps, metal taps, homemade taps, wooden taps. You can also use plastic tubing to go from tree to tree to tree, and there's specialized equipment that helps you do that. It makes collecting it much easier. If you have a bunch of trees that you've tapped on a hill, you can connect them from tap to tap to tap, and at the bottom of the hill have your holding bucket, where all the sap will drain down there. There are all kinds of systems for collecting sap in order to make maple syrup. So now I'm going to take this sap to the sugar shack that we built last week, and I'll show you how we built that in my next video. And once I add this to everything else we've collected, we'll be making some maple syrup. You'll see that in the future as well. This is Scott with the XFed Homestead. We'll see you next time.